All right, so Viktor Orban, leader of Hungary, says a quiet part out loud. Basically, Ukraine is not going to win this war, and the only way out of this is to focus on peace talks. A ceasefire followed by peace talks. He's one of the few European leaders talking sense. Okay, this isn't Russian propaganda. This is just reality. Okay, there was a report on some insurgents from Ukraine, and the Ukrainian government was saying that they had nothing to do with it, but these are Russians fighting for change in Russia. I mean, it was an insurgency. It was 70 guys that did some type of attack in Russia. They got killed. Meanwhile, you have people calling for F-16s. Let's send F-16s to Ukrainians, like it's going to change the actual direction of the war. F-16s, okay? You notice how everything is just escalating? And Viktor Orban, leader of Hungary, warned against that, warned against the escalation, because it's clear that Ukraine is not going to win this war. They're clearly losing. They're taking on most of the casualties, okay? It's just reality. People are becoming so disconnected from reality, it's just really difficult to even talk to people. Anyway, things are going on. That's what's going on in Ukraine. F-16s, of course, they're American fighter jets, and there's a lot of talk to send some of them over there. Here's my question. How long is it going to take to actually train these Ukrainian pilots? If they're going to be putting these airplanes, these aircraft in Ukraine, how long is it going to take them to train? Are they already being trained? How is this escalation going to help the people of Ukraine? Because ultimately, they're escalating, but I don't see NATO dedicating soldiers, actually putting their own people in there in significant numbers to actually defend Ukraine. I don't see that happening. So how does this help the people of Ukraine if they just escalate the situation and the Russians end up destroying that country? Other things going on, there's an issue with there's a nuclear power plant in Zapro. I can't even say the rest of the name. This nuclear power plant, they're actually getting external, Ukraine finally reconnected to this power plant. It's in Russian occupied territory. There's some concerns about this, because anytime you're dealing with nuclear reactors in a war zone, I mean, that's a potential for absolute disaster. Humanitarian disaster, environmental disaster. There's some serious concerns right there. And anyway, the Russian ministry, they announced that there was actually a run-in. There's actually a run-in between American forces and the Russian Ministry of Defense basically reported that two of their fighter jets encountered American bombers, B-1B strategic bombers. And they had some type of interaction. They came close. We don't have a lot of details on what exactly happened, but it's something worth mentioning. And according to this Brigadier General Pat Ryder, he confirmed this whole situation. He said that, my understanding is that it was safe and professional. It was a safe and professional interaction with a Russian aircraft, so nothing significant to report on that front. Well, I hope that's true. I really do hope that's true. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, Bakhmut is being completely occupied by the Russians. Now, the Donetsk People's Republic, the leader of that organization, is now saying that, we're going to rename Bakhmut to something else. I understand that when the Russians came in, these independent republics were formed. They moved away from Ukraine, and now there's some moves. The Russians, they're losing people, but the Ukrainians are losing a lot more people. And you have a mass exodus from Ukraine. People leaving the country. It's affecting Poland. I think in the beginning of the war, it was, oh yeah, get those Ruskies or whatever the hell. That was the attitude in the beginning. Now it's like, okay, now there's a bunch of refugees in Poland from Ukraine, and I don't think their social services, their system could even handle that situation. So anyway, they're going to send F-16s. What's next? Nuclear weapons? I mean, because it seems to be more and more of an escalation, and it's not going to help the people of Ukraine. If you're interested in the chip maker situation, chip making wars, South Korea says that its chip makers can fill the void after China bans Micron over a security risk. So basically, South Korea is saying that, okay, we can step in, we'll allow our companies to sort of step in and fill in that gap if the U.S. and China gets into a certain situation. Look, the bottom line is, when you actually read over the article, It clearly, okay, so hours after China banned Micron Technology's semiconductor products from critical infrastructure projects over security risks, national security risks, Seoul, the capital of South Korea, stepped up and said that South Korean companies such as Samsung, the only one I really recognize, can fill the void as tensions between the U.S. and China continue to escalate. Common theme here, escalation with the U.S. and China, escalation with NATO, which is basically the U.S. driving that, with U.S. and Russia. Escalation. That's the theme. Well, the bottom line is those companies, they're going to do what's best for their financial interests. Okay, they're not aligned with the U.S. They're aligned with filling up their pocketbooks. That's what they're aligned with right now. That's their priority. Okay, what else is going on? I'm gonna get into what's going on with the U.S. Elections. I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna be really blunt about that. But first, before I get into that, well, while we're talking about foreign policy and things like that, here's something right here. U.S. post 9/11 wars caused 4.5 million deaths. 4.5 million deaths. Now, this is just an article I came up with. You can respond to this in the comment section. Displaced 38 to 60 million people, according to a study. The wars that the U.S. waged in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Pakistan, following September 11th, caused at least 4.5 million people to die, according to a report by Brown University. Nearly 1 million people who lost their lives fighting, whereas 3.6 to 3.7 million people died indirectly as a result of those wars. And what do we have to show for it? We went into Iraq because the petrodollar was threatened. The US dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. Saddam was going to start to sell oil and something else in gold or something else other than the US dollar. That was a threat to US world power. What do we have to show for it after all those wars? Now, I'm not saying exact millions of people died because of those wars. I'm just saying, what do we have to show for it? I'm talking about this because I'm thinking about the presidential elections. All this talk about, oh, should it be Trump or DeSantis? Okay, right off the bat, Nikki Haley. Okay, let's go through the nominees. And we're going to talk about an ugly truth about this whole situation. If you're a Republican, look at 2024. Okay, how many of these people are not neocons? Because if they're a neoconservative, they want to use the United States military to insert ourselves into situations all around the world to sort of police the world. I'm not interested in voting for that candidate. I'm not interested in Nikki Haley. No one's really interested in her. Why do we have all these Republicans running that nobody really wants to vote for these people? Nikki Haley, nobody wants to vote for her. Not even the women. Okay, who else? Tim Scott just announced that he's running for president. Okay, he's a black Republican, the only black Republican in the U.S. Senate. Okay, boring guy. I mean, they say he's a nice guy. Great. Okay, great. Okay, he doesn't have a presidential look, and that has nothing to do with race. I'll just put it that way, to put it politely. And that's not even the biggest issue, because looks shouldn't even matter. Americans, let's be honest, they don't want a single guy to be president of the United States. We haven't had a single man become president of the United States in over 100 years. People believe that, if you have a family, that's sort of like social proof. It shows that you're more like them. It shows that you're more invested in our civilization. You have more to lose. I mean, at the end of the day, just because somebody has a family doesn't mean they give a damn about yours. But anyway, Tim Scott, I don't think he's a fighter. He's not a leader in the U.S. Senate. So why should he be president? That's my take on it. We need somebody who has an agenda that's going to boost the middle class, give the maximum amount of Americans a chance to really succeed. We need somebody who has that type of agenda, somebody who has a plan to actually bring it to fruition, and somebody who has the ability to hire people who can actually implement that, actually back the president up. Because Trump, he had the agenda, he didn't have much of a plan, and he definitely didn't have the right people. That's part of the reason why he failed. He actually did pretty good, good job as president, despite all those limitations. But when COVID hit, he completely mismanaged it. And he listened to the wrong people. Fauci, among others. Shutting down the economy or encouraging that, it was a disastrous move, and he wasn't consistent in his leadership during that whole situation. And that's the reason why he was not successful. And yes, there was a lot of shady things that went on election night. There's a lot of Pennsylvania did some things that they weren't supposed to do. But bottom line is, if he handled that situation better, it would have never even got to that point. It would have never even been close. He has not been able to win at least 50% of the vote. And I know you got to win the Electoral College to become president of the United States. But the fact of the matter is, I'm tired of seeing these Republican candidates fail to even get 50% of the vote. It's getting ridiculous. So we do need somebody who's willing to fight. We need somebody with an agenda, with a plan, and a team to implement, to actually get it in place. Because if you don't have a team, you're going to fall on your face. Now, what's the agenda? Let's eliminate anybody, let's not choose any candidate who has a neocon agenda. The United States should put the interests of the United States people first, period. We don't need to have hundreds of bases all over the world. We made a lot of promises with entitlements. We're going to have to break them. I know people don't want to hear that politically. Republicans don't want to do that, but that's just a reality. You spend more on Social Security and Medicare and all this other stuff, and the government made promises, and they treated those programs like they're Ponzi schemes, and they're not going to be sustainable. Yes, the government should honor its promises, but it doesn't have the money. So either we are going to have to suffer with cuts and adapt, or we're going to have a systematic collapse. That's the reality. That's how I see it. Anyway, Trump, the bottom line is, too many people hate this guy. Too many people have an irrational hatred towards this guy. He is not viable. I voted for the guy in 2016. I was happy to see him win because I thought he was a better candidate, better for the country. 2020, I voted for him again, even though I had some reservations about his vaccine and his promotion of the vaccine. I still thought he was a much better candidate. I don't regret that. But the bottom line is, he didn't get it done, and we're in a situation where too many people just hate this guy. You can nominate him to be president again, but does he have a realistic chance of winning? Too many people are just not even willing to even consider voting for him. But then you have DeSantis. This guy is chasing Mickey Mouse, looking like a complete fool. Great governor, but then he gets obsessed with trying to go after Disney. So now corporations are backing off for this guy, so he can't get the corporate backing. And frankly, I think he looked ridiculous. Disney made him look stupid. And I'm wondering, who else is going to outplay this guy? Who else is going to outmaneuver this guy if he becomes president of the United States? But he's a great governor. His wife is definitely an asset. He's a beautiful family. Could help him. It will definitely help him. But can he take on Trump? And then, he has an agenda, but it has to go beyond the whole anti-woke agenda that he's pushing. He has to have a real plan on a nationwide scale. And he needs a team, people who have his back. I think he might have the capabilities of doing that. But what about foreign policy? Where's he stand on that? Is it really America first? So, is he going to be, there's word that he might be announcing he's going to run for president tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see how he does in this. Does he have a shot? Absolutely. And then who else is running for president? Some other guy, some tech guy, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I think the establishment, they're putting forth Tim Scott as a temporary candidate. I think they have somebody else in mind. Tucker Carlson, for example, I'm not saying he's going to run. I'm saying there was a situation where there was some type of super PAC that was using his image and trying to recruit him to run for president. Recently, his lawyers issued a legal notice to them, telling them to cease and desist, stop. So I guess he's not planning on running for president. They said he's not going to run for president. That's not his intention. They have somebody in mind. Because the establishment, they don't want Trump. And I think if they can find somebody who can carry a populist, practical agenda that can help a large segment of the population, the middle class, and somebody who won't completely turn off everybody, then maybe they're going to go with them. Maybe Youngkin, the governor of Virginia. he might be the guy they might go with. Now, am I a fan of him? I don't know much about him. I just know that he won a state that I didn't think any Republican will be able to win anytime soon. So maybe he might be their guy. I don't know. Just want to put that out there. Okay, bird flu. Other random stories. Bird flu in Brazil. Brazil actually declared an animal health emergency after there were several cases of bird flu. Basically, they declared a 6-month animal healthcare emergency after several cases of bird flu, avian flu, were discovered in some wild birds. It's about 7 cases. I keep an eye on that avian flu stuff because if it jumps from, if they have a situation where it's spread from human to human, we're going to be in big trouble because that flu, that's a high kill rate, much higher than 2020, what we dealt with in 2020. Okay, that happens. You're talking. I don't even want to go there. The debt ceiling. Okay, I'm sick of even talking about default and everything. They're going to keep spending money politically. They're going to keep spending money. Why don't they just put an infinity sign for the budget? Let's get real. They're going to keep spending money. Okay, last story. Some good news. I know you guys accuse me of talking about the gloom and doom. Some good news. Appeals court. They ruled that basically, you know that pistol brace rule change, the stabilizing brace, accessory used on AR-15 pistols. Well, ATF changed the rule because for the years ATF said it was legal, but then they changed their mind. They changed the rule on that and said that, hey, well, in January we're going to change the rule on this. If you have a stabilizing brace on an AR-15 pistol, basically an AR-15 with a barrel that's less than 16 inches or so, it's going to be designated as SBR, a short barrel rifle. And you're going to have to register that, but you don't have to pay the $200 tax stamp. You'll get a grace period. It's something they offered, and you basically have 3 months or 120 days. I think it's 120 days, not 3 months, 4 months. They actually convert over. Well, that deadline is fast approaching. May 31st, right? Or was it June 1st? June 1st, right after May 31st, coming up very, very quickly. That deadline was approaching, and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals basically put a temporary block on the Biden administration rule from going into effect for gun owners. This is a temporary victory. It does not mean that, we can forget all about this whole nightmare. The whole situation is basically the federal government punishing law-abiding citizens. They're saying a product that we bought that was legal for years is all of a sudden not legal. Not because of a change in the law, because an agency, a bureau, said so. They changed their rule. So is that not like creating an actual law without Congress? Then how could that actually be constitutional? That's the state of the nation. That's where we're at right now. All right, guys. Hopefully this whole situation can be resolved. There's a lot of things that are going on in this country that's very concerning. Everything from the homelessness situation, everything from the inflation situation. People can't afford to buy cars to get to work. People can't afford to pay rent. To even literacy. Did you know the literacy rate was somewhere around 79% in America? Really? And it's funny how people look at a presidential candidate, though, and say, he doesn't look presidential. I say that because that's how people think. I mean, let's keep it real. I wouldn't want to have a drink with this guy. We could be looking at a collapse, and that's where people are at. That's what people are thinking. And look at our options for president. I think the powers that be, they have somebody in mind. I don't know if it's going to be I don't know. They have somebody in mind. And there's an agenda. And it's not in our best interest. They don't care what color you are. They don't care where you're from in this country or you're outside this country. They have an agenda. And then all this AI stuff, let me tell you what I think about this AI stuff. U.S. and China competing over that. China has a much bigger population and They have just a bigger economy, well, just more people to work with, and the U.S. has more high-end technology. I think AI, automation, all that stuff, robots are going to be used to replace the work power, the manpower. It's going to replace with the work that humans could have done. It's going to make it easier to make a transition from a planet with 8 billion people to a planet with a lot less, where the rulers have a lot more control. They're going to find a way to remove, they're going to get rid of us. That's just how I see it. Because why do you need people when you have robots that can do the work, or AI and everything that can do the work of 1,000 people, thousands of people? I think that's ultimately the goal. They're going to sell it as, oh, this is going to make your life so much easier. Oh, this is going to be entertainment. Oh, you can plug into like a Matrix-like program and all your fantasies can come true. All these robots, that stuff isn't going to be for the middle class. It might be, I may be wrong. I think some of that stuff might be available at first, but ultimately it's designed to have a world that's very different than what we have. And I suspect that a lot of people won't be there. I don't know if there's going to be more pandemics, there's going to be some type of pathogen, or I don't know. I know I'm going way out on the deep end, but we're so divided, we're not even looking at the real forces that are trying to get rid of us all. And they don't care how liberal or how conservative you are. I really do believe that there's people at the very top, and I'm not just talking about just regular billionaires or whatever, or successful business owners. I mean, there's people, subgroups that have a certain agenda. And, well, I hope you're prepared. I gotta get some more water. Hope you have extra food, extra water, non-perishable food. I hope you're prepared for some challenging times. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And don't forget the future belongs to those who prepare for it today.